Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we continue our Redemption of Traitors discussion, as we move on to the Word Bearers. Now, we don't really need a general spoiler warning today, but as always I'll throw one out there anyway, as today we will be referring to events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So earlier in the week we began our what if discussion, ranking the redemption of the traitor legions from least likely to most. Again, we all know this is never going to happen. It is just too impossible. And honestly, the Emperor would have no intention of saving the traitor legions anyway. While after 10,000 years he may still wish to save his lost sons, when it comes to their legions, well, they are another prospect entirely. Just ask Magnus about that one. However, regardless, it is undoubtedly a fun what-if discussion to debate. Now, we kicked it off a few days ago with the Black Legion. For all the obvious mutations of others, for all the chaos worship of some, for me, in my mind, Abaddon just possesses too pure a hatred, and without the ties of a Primarch, the scars of the past are just too ingrained on these former sons of Horus, the Astartes that make up the core of that legion. Now today we move on to the next least likely traitor legion in my mind to be redeemed, and surprisingly, I actually had a harder time deciding on these bottom two than I did the ones at the top. The top few I decided fairly easily, but the middle pack to the bottom I really struggled to find an order for. However, ultimately I decided upon Lorgar's Word Bearers. Before I sat down to think about an order, I don't think I ever would have thought I'd have the Black Legion and Word Bearers as the two most least likely legions. However, in really thinking about their reasons for turning, their history, I genuinely now can't see any other two being down there. Now, the Word Bearers are our first traitor legion in the rankings to still have their Primarch. And as I said when discussing the Black Legion, the fate of a Primarch really guides the direction and the very soul of their legion. For all of his 10,000 years in isolation, Lorgar is really no exception to that rule, so we'll focus on him to begin with. There was a time when I felt Lorgar could really be one of the easiest Primarchs to be redeemed, the mere sight of the God Emperor in all his ascended glory being enough to overwhelm the pious Lorgar. However, as his story developed, and as I've truly thought more about his character, I really feel the scars of his turning just run too deeply. For some of the traitor Primarchs, their fall is tragic. They ended up against their father through no fault of their own. For others, their reasoning is really well founded, and for some you might feel not so much. However, I don't think there can be any doubt that Lorgar's is one of the best. An understandable tale of faith, and a relatable tale of rejection. Now, I'm not one who buys the Lorgar never truly followed his father and was always a chaos worshipper story. I understand the evidence and the reasons why many people do. However, for me, that raw emotion that you see in the first Heretic, the scene of the raising of Monarchia, it's really just too visceral. The emotions are too raw. It's undoubtedly one of the best scenes of the heresy. In that moment of chastisement by the Emperor, the scolding by his father, Lorgar is truly emotionally broken. His spirit is shattered. I mean, if that wasn't bad enough, he's literally being rejected by his god. His worship is being denied. The raising of Monarchia may be physically a destruction of a city, but it equally represents the scouring of Lorgar emotionally. There are very real and very deep scars carved into Lorgar at Monarchia. Scars that would go on to shape the rest of his life. Scars that would never truly heal. The pilgrimage and soul-searching he goes on after Monarchia is a true search for a replacement of that void within him. Lorgar seeking a place of belonging. And it's one filled by chaos. If in some way the Emperor found Lorgar and purged the taint out of him, somehow brought Lorgar back from his demonic elevation, do you think those scars would heal? Or do you think those scars would very much still be there? For me, how could those scars not remain? The Emperor may be a god now, but that doesn't change his past. Whereas some traitor primarchs may have felt neglected, or misinterpreted their father's desires or actions, there is truly nothing to misinterpret with Lorgar. It had got to the point where the Emperor wanted to shatter his son's worship, and whether right or wrong, he did exactly that. The Emperor may purge the physical corruption, but I don't think the now god standing before him could purge the scars within. If anything, it would only infuriate Lorgar more. I mean, what would the Emperor say? Oh, it's okay to worship me now, I'm a god. It really doesn't work like that. History cannot be changed. His actions will always remain for Lorgar. Lorgar is dedicated heart and soul to the ruinous powers, and he, perhaps of all the traitor primarchs, is the heart and soul of his legion. As he was given fully to the pantheon of the ruinous powers, so too were his sons. While they have the piousness of faith, they also have its convictions. Again, I'm going to use the example of the clone of Fulgrim here. Whereas his sons, despite their heretic corruption, were overwhelmed at the mere sight of their untainted Primarch, I don't think that would remotely happen for the Word-Bearers. They alone of all the traitors truly chose the ruinous powers. Yes, it may have begun with the one, but the fact remains as a whole, as a legion, they chose it. They truly embraced it. When I look at the Death Guard, the Emperor's children, the World Eaters, they were corrupted, knowingly or otherwise, enslaved. They didn't willingly walk towards the Dark Pantheon like the Word-Bearers did. Nobody did. If the Emperor was somehow to cure Lorgar of his demonic ascension, rather than be stunned by the purity of it, I think the Word-Bearers alone would be absolutely aghast. They would be absolutely appalled by it. It wouldn't be Lorgar being saved to them. It would be their Primarch being punished, tormented. It really is a no-win situation for the Emperor. In terms of organisation and structure, the Word-Bearers have remained largely the legion they always were. Yes, there's been a civil war and power struggle of sorts within the legion in Lorgar's absence. However, on the whole, the legion remains. And with the rumoured return of the Urizen to the galaxy, any power struggle within the legion immediately ended. He is the spiritual figurehead of their legion. I just don't see any way they could be turned from their union with the ruinous powers. Whereas I could accept other legions, perhaps seeing the light so to speak, or the veil being lifted from their eyes, For the word bearers, I just don't think that logic fits. If it wasn't for the scars of Monarchia, the absolute chastisement of their faith, then sure, absolutely. I'd even maybe have the word bearers right at the very top. However, as I said, those scars would always remain. And rather than beginning with chaos, honestly, I feel it began with the Emperor's actions on Monarchia. It may have been well intended, but it was undoubtedly the beginning of the end. The Wordbearer's fall was very, very unique. Even if Lorgar was taken out of the picture, it just doesn't change anything. The only reason I had them above the Black Legion was because, like I said the other day, I really see Abaddon's hatred as about as pure a reflection of that emotion as possible. It's not tainted by outside factors such as the religiousness of the Wordbearers, and so it seemed right to have them ranked below them. However, in truth, they are probably joint bottom together, and an argument could be made for the two legions to be flipped, because at least an emotion such as hatred can be pure. In regards to the Wordbearers, for me, there is nothing left in that regard. But as always guys, what do you think? Would you have the Wordbearers ranked next alongside the Black Legion as the least likely to ever be redeemed? Like me, do you see those scars of Monarchia too deeply ingrained within the Legion's identity? Even if that shroud of chaos was lifted, would those scars still remain? And rather than the ruinous powers, is the Emperor himself still to blame? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. If you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.